Hey, what's going on? It's me, Shaun. So I'm really perturbed at this point because I just broke my own glasses. I just sat on them. So here are the lenses right here. No arms, and here are the arms. So I just sat on these things, and now I'm gonna have to go out and get them fixed. And I hope wherever I bring them, they can fix it, but I doubt it because the hinges are snapped off. So I might have to get new glasses. I'm not happy about that. But anyway, this video is my bucket list. And I thought about this last night. I thought about, oh, what have I not accomplished that I really want to do? So here is a list of 11. So I go to 11 A and B, 11 different things. So the first one is to live in Belgium. Now I've been Brussels, Belgium. I've been to France, I've been to Spain, I've been to England. I had a stopover in England. I had a stopover in Switzerland. I was in Canada two different times and Dominican Republic, but I never got a chance to go to Brussels, Belgium. So Brussels, Belgium. The second one is to own a BMW 325i inline all-wheel drive. That's what I want. I got my list right here. And so that's what I want to have a pilot's license for a private plane. Now, I was a big fan of Flight Simulator back in the day. I had what was it, 2000? I think it was 2009 edition and 2010 edition uh, of Flight Simulator. I think it's called Flight Simulator 10. But anyway, so I didn't fly that much the 747, but definitely 737 and private planes. The Nighthawk, I flew a couple of times, Cessna, Beechcraft, uh, gliders. So I like things that fly. I almost worship things that fly, and we'll go into that a little bit later. So have a pilot's license for a private plane. Number four, to roam the archives at Vatican City, Italy. And so it's Vatican City, Italy, and the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Why do I say those two things? Because first of all, Vatican City in Rome, first of all, it's its own city. It has its own government. The Pope lives there, um, and underground, I believe it's something like 20. I think it's 20 stories below Earth. So the equivalent of a 20-story building down below has been dug out decades ago and I think they continue to dig to put artifacts down there. So the scuttlebutt that's a military term, a Navy term. I'm not going to translate it. You got to Google it. Scuttlebutt is that there's so many ancient things there. They have cars there from I think it's the 1920s. Um, but the most important things are books, biblical books that did not make it into the canon. So the story of and sayings of Mary, some other events of Jesus, um, a lot of things that I can't even really speculate on. I hear through reading and doing my research, like I tell everybody to do. Um, is in the archives in Italy. So you have prints by Machiavelli. I hear um, what is it? The Museum of Alexandria that was burnt down during the time of Queen Cleopatra's reign by the Romans, intelligent people, burning books, right? Like the Germans, like the Nazis. So they burned the Romans did burned the city of Alexandria with that with the library at Alexandria. So some of the books that were saved, or scrolls that were saved, were how the uh, pyramids were built. There's some scrolls that were saved on, I believe it was other type of architecture, not really farming at all. Um, and there are a few others scrolls that were saved. Probably only about 100 scrolls were saved out of an archive of thousands of scrolls, plays that we as a society don't even know about because maybe the playwright only wrote one or two, but everything was copied back in those days, hand copied back in those days, and put in the library of Alexandria. So some of those books that made it through that fire went to the archives in Italy, in Vatican City. So you have books by them. You have books that did not make it to the biblical canon. Um, which really interests me. One of them, I believe, is a letter that was given to the children of Lourdes when Mother Mary appeared to four children who were cousins to each other uh, on what to do in the future. So, if it was the early 1900s, I believe that's when the children of Lourdes saw Mother Mary's. I don't want to say apprehension because I really believe uh, that they saw the image, the likeness of Mother Mary, and she told them what to do in the future. She told them that there would be a war coming out of Germany, and her predictions or her sayings went on until 1962, and she was told that. Leaders were supposed, well, actually, um, the little girl, I cannot remember her name, and I don't want to speculate. I have something in my mind, but I don't want to speculate and get it wrong. Was supposed to open those as she grew up, as these times came about, specific times, the 1930s, 1932, 1962, like that. Um, she was supposed to go public with those, with that letter, and I believe there was a second letter given to her insofar as uh, uh, 1962, and I believe also the 1970s. I'm not sure about that one. I got to stop speculating because it makes me look like a Yahoo, right? But I love y'all so much, and I really want to give information to y'all and stuff like that. So right now we're up to number four, and I also mentioned the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Now, they have, I think around the world, darn, Shaun, got so much information. I think around the world there are three depositories. There's the one in Italy, in Vatican City. There's the Smithsonian Institute, which people just think it's a museum. And then there's an archive in Israel, which is under the Dome of the Rock, where other people come to pray. Uh, and that's highly, highly secretive. Now, those are three entities. So the Smithsonian has articles and they bid for this stuff. Scientists and governments bid for different archives that are found. Say, for instance, the Iceman that was found on the border of Italy and Switzerland had almost a physical war as to who was going to take that particular skeletal remain, the Iceman, back in the, I think it was the early 1990s, uh, and Italy won. So they have a museum which I didn't know about in 1997, even though I was in Europe at that time. Um, so they governments bid over certain articles, and so the Smithsonian has articles that were found at Antarctica. So they're 14-foot giants, frozen giants. Now I know y'all are laughing at me because y'all don't believe in giants because of the allegories like Jack and the Beanstalk, but you also have to realize that there was a giant in the Holy Bible. I believe things that are in the Holy Bible. Sorry, I think that's our only truth that we have on this planet of things that happen. Uh, so David and Goliath. David fought Goliath, who was a giant, slew him with a rock, um, and then chopped off his head. Uh, Whichever form of Bible you have, some of them say they chopped off his head. Some of them completely delete the chopping off procedure. But David slew Goliath with a slingshot. So it's a rock put into a sling and then he threw it. Um, that should really be on my bucket list, how to do a slingshot. But anyway, and it was different from the ones that you pull back because they didn't have elastic at that time, in biblical times. So anyway, they have Smithsonian Museum does have, I believe, it's seven 14-foot giants, frozen giants that were taken from Antarctica. Subsequently, they found a whole culture of people who were dressed like ancient Egyptians who did not speak modern languages. They didn't speak French, they didn't speak Italian, they didn't speak German, they didn't speak any type of Middle Eastern language. They didn't speak English. So the government, our government, has placed in Antarctica scientists. Now, this it's a double-edged sword. So the scientists are posing themselves as meteorologists, people who measure the snow and ice, and that's that's a load of crap. What they are as scientists, insofar as excuse me, uh, humanity is concerned, and so they found this frozen uh, under the ice, which is why they were there in the first place to look for articles because they found via sonar. Sonar is underwater. Sorry, by satellite, space satellite going over the Antarctic region. They were mapping and found these anomalies under the ice. So America sent these scientists, and they looked and prodded and found this whole civilization that was frozen under I don't know how many feet of ice. I hope that's the correct term, feet of ice. Doesn't sound right. But anyway, I look at these videos and I look at the faces that I make, and they're really strange. So let's make one more. I love all of y'all. So that's one of my bucket lists is to, and it's number 4, to roam the archives of Vatican City, Italy, and the Smithsonian Institute. It's the Institute of Smithsonian, but it doubles as um, a museum. So when you go to the museum, you will never ever see any of these articles. You'll see airplanes and stuff and probably Indian artifacts that they stole from Native American burial sites. They need to give that stuff back to the Native Americans. I'm all for the Native Americans. Sorry, that's the way I flow. Um, so when you go to see it, don't even ask, but because they probably put you out of the museum. So that's my number 4 bucket. Number 5, what am I? Number 5, to be cloned. Now, we hit kind of like a solid rock here, to be cloned, because I understand that giving birth and procreating is God's work. Um, but when I was a kid in the 1970s, there were movies that didn't make it to the movie houses. They were really done for television. If you look on not Hulu. I don't think you'll be able to find it on Hulu, but if you Google clone movies of the 1970s, and I urge you all to do it and tell me whether or not you found any of these, you'll see movies that were produced and directed about cloning. And I love those movies because my imagination was hot at that time. So, I saw it's a good percentage of movies out there that deal with the process of cloning. What will happen if the government clones you? You don't know, and then they use the clone as a secret agent, and then the clone gets caught, and they bring you into the government to clone you some more. So I thought they were good movies, the worst special effects I've ever seen in my entire existence. But I really love those movies. So I got attached to the concept of cloning early on in life, and I know it's not right, and I understand that there was Dolly, the sheep that was cloned in Scotland, and even the entertainer Barbara Streisand uh, cloned her dog when it died. So the thing that I don't see is, and it's speculated also in the movie of, which Star Wars. There's a Star Wars movie that has cloning in it. I forget which one it is. Not one of the better Star Wars movies, believe me. But we're not going to even go into Star Wars right now. But anyway, I want to be cloned. So that's my thing. And number 6 on my bucket list, like I said, I got it right here, is to rock climb. Now, I don't want to climb Mount Everest. I don't want to climb the Grand Tetons, which is in South America. I don't want to do that. I just want to find a good uh, rock, and not one of those prefabricated rocks you find in gyms. I don't want to do that. I want to go out. I want to have my pitons, which is some of the spikes, spikes that are used in. You have to nail it into the side of the rock, and then you attach a hook to it, and you have your cables and like that. And I really want to do it with I want to rock climb with the naturalist Bear Grill, who has had two shows on how to survive after a nuclear holocaust, and then like a nature show where he was taking out different uh, uh, not musicians but athletes, and he also took out Barack Obama on a trip. And you can there were trips where people went out. It was freezing cold, and they had to fend for themselves with him guiding them. And then it was hot. He did one in the desert and how to find food and all that stuff. Definitely, I would, I would really like to travel with him for a good year. So maybe I should have put that instead of rock climbing. So number 7 is to detach the moon's orbit from Earth's gravitational pull. This is number 7. Detach the moon uh, from. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Number 7, to detach the moon's orbit from Earth's gravitational pull. Now, I'm one of the uh, people who is under the consistence uh, that the moon was driven to Earth's atmosphere eons ago, and somehow attached to the Earth's gravitational pull. In actuality, if you do studies, again, always do your studying. Don't listen to me. The moon does not rotate on its own. The moon is, say, just for instance, my hand, and it just goes around with the Earth like that. If it orbited, I mean, if it rotated, it would be doing something like this while it's, you know, and it doesn't do that. There's a dark side of the moon that stays dark all the time. And America has not gone to the dark side of the moon. We have not landed there. We have passed through it, passed above it, where we lose communications. We did this in the 1970s, where we lose communications, called going dark. And they have heard music while they were going, the astronauts have heard music while they were going by the dark side of the moon. They've seen buildings on the dark side of the moon. So that intrigues me because I still have my hot imagination. Would I want to go on the dark side of the moon? Hell yeah. Yeah, I would. I ain't gonna start no intergalactic war, but definitely want to do that. Um, and there's an old Native American proverb that says, I don't have the specifics of the proverb, but it's stated within their culture that they remember, their ancestors remember a time when the earth did not have the moon at all. And then all of a sudden, one day it showed up. I think it showed up in the daytime. Um, and an antenna that faces the moon. Now, this is from NASA. There's an antenna that faces the moon that our government, many other governments, don't even know what that projects or if it projects anything at all, but it faces the moon. I kind of think it is, if we really get too advanced as scientists and space exploration, and it's like a Death Star where it could blow the Earth apart. Hot imagination. What can you do? So that's number 7. Number 8 is to invent a time portal. Hot imagination. So I want to invent a time portal because not because I think things are so bad here on Earth. I love the Earth. I love being American. I love having my freedoms. And I understand that there are detrimental things here on Earth, but that's everywhere you go, on earth as it is in heaven, right? So I'm not going to a different planet or something like that to get away from it. I'm not trying to go to Lyra. I'm not trying to go to the ice planet Venus. I'm not trying to go to the moon or to the Mar or to Mars, which I believe is inhabited anyway by Nazi Germans. Um, but I would really like to go and get in a wormhole and go somewhere else with the knowledge that I can come back to uh, this Earth. Um, I don't want to go back to the 1800s because that's detrimental for black men. I don't want to go back to anything beyond the 1900s. I don't want to go back to maybe just for a short visit where I can look around and see things for myself and possibly not be seen by the inhabitants of humans at that particular time. So, especially the way I dress, I'd be seen as, futuristic man. But I'm not going back there. To lead people or for celebratory reasons. I really like history, and I would really like to go back to the 1600s to see to warn the Native Americans that the white man was coming, so they could better defend themselves. So, okay, number 8 was to invent a time portal. Number 9, to investigate Antarctica and the hollow Earth theory. Now, I mentioned Antarctica before and how there's a culture that's been found by uh, scientists. Uh, but uh, I also know that there's ways to get into Agartha, and Agartha is the first city that you to reach, apparently, um, when you go through the Hollow Earth. I'm a Hollow Earth theorist. I don't sing it from the rafters, but I believe that if the Earth was solid, or if any planet really was solid, that it would sink into degradation. That's just me. So hollow Earth, uh, uh, enclosed sun, oceans down, and I think that there is 16 different levels of inner Earth. Uh, and the beings, because they know humans quite well, would not probably even let me go down to the first level, because they all see us as violent sub creatures and not on a higher plane enough to understand. And I say not on a higher plane, but look at this. We're afraid of everything. We're if you look different and you live next door, there's always some sort of speculation of fear uh, that we as humans project. We don't like anything that doesn't look like us or sound like us or move like us. Um, Even other humans that are a little bit different, we want to put them in mental institutions and ostracize them from society. So, what if we saw an alien? Um, Oh, I'm so sorry. Allergies. What if we saw an alien that really wasn't even like what we thought? We have little pig scribblings of uh, what we thought little green men were and stuff like that. And I think we're so prejudiced, deep-seated bigotry that, we would see these aliens and they would frighten us and we would want to shoot it. For me, I say not. But you never know what you're going to do when you're horrified by something. Sorry. Well, I can only speak the truth. Number 9, that was number 8. No, number 9 is investigate Antarctica and the hollow Earth theory. Number 10 is travel in my own UFO. I would love that. I would really love that. There's shouldn't even mention this movie because I cannot think of the title with Will Smith, and he gets in this UFO and he goes and he detonates and explodes a mothership against violence with aliens. But anyway, I would really like to have my own UFO that I know how to manipulate and work and know all the technical ins and outs so it flies decently and fly that around. And then again, forming, uh, not for uh, to be elated by governments and stuff like that, but just to do it because I really like things that fly. I've had dreams from when I was a kid about me flying over, over sidewalks and stuff and getting right up into the tops of trees. I've had dreams like that. Um, I'll cue you in on a little bit of a secret about me. My fantasy really is to grow wings because I love flying that much. I'm not so crazy about turbulence, but I really love to fly. And when I saw that movie, oh my God, Avengers with Dark Angel, I think it is, the dude that had wings, I'm like, all right, that's me. I could definitely do that. Uh, and I understand that your bone marrow would dissipate because birds don't have bone marrow because it weights them down. And so they have hollowed out bones and makes them fly. And I know that uh, my body will look different, but hey, I'm willing to do that. So 11A, it says supplemental 11A to own the Ark of the Covenant, which is the voice box of God, which was built. If I remember my biblical history, it was built by uh, David, and it was ahead of the ancient Hebrews when they went into um, Canaan, I believe it was, and nobody could stop that particular army because it had the Ark of the Covenant. And Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very first movie with Harrison Ford, depicts this, and the Nazis take it, and it's supposed to be right now. Um, they created it and put it into the Smithsonian Institute. So people who travel the world, they go to Ethiopia because Ethiopia stated that they haven't, when in actuality, they have several copies that they made, and nobody has seen that but Ethiopian priests. Then it's claimed to have been in Israel under the Dome of the Rock, hidden away. It's claimed that uh, um, there are a lot of claims out there, but I want to mention something, and I think I did it in one of my videos called Dreams, where I had a dream that I walked into. I was invited to a Seder, which is an important dinner that Jewish people have. As you know, my mom was half Jewish. Her dad was a Jew from Scotland, my grandfather. And so I had a dream that, and I've had several dreams about rabbis and what they've told me. So I walked into the Seder and looked at a table and was completely full of different types of foods and matzo ball soup and these two elderly uh, Jewish people invited me into their apartment. And it was in New York City. And as I walked down the hall, on each side of me was glass, like in a museum. Um, Built out from their walls, and they had different exhibitions. So little broken pieces of pottery uh, and pottery that was intact in its entirety on little stands and stuff like that from ancient times. And as I walked into my left hand side, I saw their butler closing a giant safe, and I could see. Um, no, I didn't see it. In actuality, I did not see what was in the safe as the butler was closing and turning the giant wheel. And I sat down and I was eating at the Seder, and my favorite meal was the matzo ball soup. And they said to me, "There's more food than the matzo ball soup." But as I looked at the safe, I could see through the iron of the safe door, and it was the Ark of the Covenant in their private collection that these two people had. And then that was the end of that particular dream. So my imagination leads me to have this thirst for knowledge and history, true knowledge and true history of events. So that was number 11A, to own the Ark of the Covenant. And again, I don't want to do anything detrimental with it. I just want to see it, and you can't touch it because when you touch the Ark of the Covenant, it's stated that it kills you. So I just want to look at it. I'm not going to take no pictures of it, so don't expect no pictures on Instagram. So 11B is to find my childhood friend Gabriel Rowe, who I matriculated with at Cathedral School for Boys, circa 1973 through 1975. Now, when I was about 11, I went to the Cathedral School for Boys. It's a private school, and my best friend there was Gabriel Rowe. And uh, when I left, because I left school early, I don't think I was there more than 2 years. I'm pretty sure that, um, and I'm an honest guy. I'm not going to be my age and lie about stuff. I wasn't a good student. That's when it was found out that was dyslexic and had a learning disability and was horrific in math. And wow, just a lot of stuff. So my mother took me out of it because took me out of the school, Cathedral School for Boys, and that's in Manhattan, 110th Street in Amsterdam. I think I'm in one of the pictures. And so anyway, my best friend was Gabriel Rowe, and I'd like to get in touch with him again because he and I were best friends. We used to go ice skating together. We used to go to each other's uh, houses, and our mothers were best friends. Always talked on the telephone for 2 hours at a time. How people do that, I'll never know. But anyway, so that was my top 11 bucket list, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we're going on, wow, 31 minutes. So I'm going to close this out. Always subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you again real soon.